Okay, are we all set?
You have a copy?
Yep.
Got you printed?
Yeah. There you go. Oh. There we go.
No one saw that, right?
No.
That's true. All across the table.
Okay, folks, we do not have sound amplification tonight since we're in the senior center, but can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
beautiful.
I always wish people would say no. But
No, I'll speak up louder.
No, please.
So, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the February 3rd special meeting of the Wappinger Town Board for the purposes of discussing our comprehensive plan update. With that, may the clerk please call the roll.
Councilman Beal. Councilwoman Bettina.
Here.
Councilman Phillips. Councilman Casella.
Here.
Supervisor Cavazzini.
Here. Do not believe that. So again, this is a special board meeting, so this is really a workshop for the town board, so it's not our typical town hall forum that you would see in the big room. So with that, we're going to get right to work. One thing that we have focused on,
Are we gonna say the Pledge of Allegiance?
there's no flag.
Jessica, do you have a flag here?
There's one on his
Thank
shirt
you.
here.
Okay.
You got it.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Okay, so, folks, when we took office, this administration, we identified enhancing and preserving the quality of life of our neighbors and for those who live here. With that, in March of 2024, we imposed a moratorium on high-density development, which has currently paused 2,000 units from coming into this town. Primarily, those units are focused in single-family zoned areas of the town of Wappinger, which would clear-cut hundreds of acres of open space, which is not what we want to do. At least that the vision that I set out on, I know my colleagues as well agree, that we do not want to continue to overburden the people of the town of Wappinger and what we have here. The town of Wappinger is the smallest geographical town in this county, and yet the second most densely populated town in this county. We currently have a housing ratio of 60% single family and 40% multifamily, whereas our neighboring towns around us only have 10% multifamily. What you will be seeing here tonight is a conversation amongst the board. The first time the board is having the opportunity to talk about this in public forum on that exact vision and what some of these comprehensive plan updates would be. This is the first in a series of conversations, and let me remind everyone that again, this is a addendum to the comprehensive plan that we have today. This is not a complete comprehensive plan overhaul by any means. This is again to start the process, to address the needs while we are in our moratorium, and following the comprehensive plan addendum and update, there would be a series of town code changes that would then facilitate that vision. Obviously then, once we have this all taken care of, I would then be asking the town board to consider a full town comprehensive plan update, which would be, everything from obtaining grant funding to pay for it, but going out and looking at a full town comprehensive plan update after this process. And that would then include a citizens advisory committee and so on and so forth. But this is starting to continuing to make these changes that we made in 2024 and solidifying them prior to the expiration of the moratorium. The town board did retain the LaBerge Group as our planning consultants during this process, and they have been tremendous in working with the town to solidify dates, numbers, and timelines to get this accomplished. I would also like to thank our town clerk, Joe Paoloni, and our receiver of taxes, Leanne Freno, for their assistance in accumulating housing data and numbers that are also going to be put into this comprehensive plan addendum to make sure that we are up to date with what we need. Essentially, what you are going to be hearing here tonight is true, real numbers that the town of Wappinger has from our real property connections up at Dutchess County and from our assessor's office. As right now, we are kind of being hit by developers with numbers from the Dutchess County Housing Study, which is a flawed study. We've said that from the get-go, as it was based on a voluntary survey of apartment complexes and rental agencies, that most of which did not respond to that study and to that survey. So right off the bat, Dutchess County and developers are coming into the town of Wappinger basically saying that we don't have enough. And we know that's not true. And we presented them with the real data, and that is what we are going to be solidifying through this process, is the real data based off of the actual real property numbers, not a voluntary survey. We don't operate like that. So with that, I'd like to invite Ben Seiden up for an introduction.
Sure.
And to kick us off.
And I thank you, Supervisor. This is, again, the first day of many meetings with you all as a town board, because you are underneath the moratorium. We're trying to identify those pieces that will directly address the concerns in the moratorium as it relates to multifamily housing. As the Supervisor said, it's not a full comprehensive plan update. Should the town board wish to do that, there is grant money out there for you to apply for in both in the county, in the compact, the Greenway, and through the CFA, which will be due in July, for you to do one in a year and a half from now. But what we're beginning to do as your planning consultants is pull together data. And Supervisor, you alluded to the fact that the data you had in the comp plan, the data from the county isn't real. It's real, it's just not accurate.
It's not accurate.
And even the information that we're beginning to talk about today on a preliminary information we gave you a few moments ago, that's only on the census. The census data does not correlate with your real property tax data. So what we have to do from here over the next 2 weeks is meet with the assessor, with the real property tax officer, identify what your real numbers are that's actually been built, and then back that into what the census said to give you a true picture of what's actually happened. There's nothing on the books from the census that show the 2,000 new units ready to pop that you have to put the moratorium on. The census is about 1,000 or more units behind what you already have built. So there's no correlation. The challenge with data is data.
Mm-hmm.
The benefit of data is data.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but we as grant writers and planners have to use the most recent data we have available and to identify those for grant applications. But when your data is flawed, there's a process which you can identify alternate data. And that alternate data, whether it's an income survey for low-mod income grants, whether it's housing grants here, that you provide and you show. So if you were, for example, if you were going to go into some of the housing programs the state now wants you to get certified for, they rely on your data. They do not rely on the census. They would go to your and say, what are your building permits? What's your zoning code? What's been on the books for the last 3 years? What's coming on your planning board? What do you have on the ground? And that's what we have to figure out through this process. Because the data that the census has, A, is old and B, is inaccurate. Mm-hmm. So you can't make informed decisions. Some people ask me, what do you do as a planner? And one answer is to help communities figure out what they want to be when they grow up. Alternatively, is I provide the data from which the elected officials can make informed decisions. We're not here to give you that answer. We're here to give you the data over time from which you, as the elected officials for the town of Wappinger, can make the most informed decisions you can for the next 10, 20, and 30 years. Because you're in that moratorium, we're now going through that data set you have, matching them with the building permit data to give you that real picture so that you can make those decisions. Those are the ideals, the vision, and direction in the 2010 comp plan what we have today? Is the character of the community that they planned then what we have today? What has changed? What are my limitations? And that's what we're trying to figure out. With me today, my team, Chris Spencer, he's our director, our planning services manager and project manager, Lance Gunderson. He's a planner on this project, and we're going to be working with you and shepherding the process over the next few months to make sure you have the information you can do to make those informed decisions on where do I put this kind of development, and is my zoning code protecting my community right now? Is our zoning code protecting our wetlands and our fresh lands and open space? Is it protecting our residents on a major transportation routes? And what in my comp plan is so outdated that I can't get grant dollars for? In addition to that, on the housing piece, we're also want to be working with Larry, your town engineer, to identify those parts of infrastructure that need to be upgraded and improved. Your comp plan did not showcase today's challenges in your water and your sewer. It did not highlight the capacity issues you're having. We want to make sure that your comp plan addendum identifies those pieces so that you can use that for additional grant applications. So your addendum is going to be identifying challenges in infrastructure, in housing, and in updating demographics. So that will give you at least a springboard for the next 2 to 5 years on your grant applications while you then do your full comprehensive plan. Does that make sense with what we want to get accomplished? So we have a little agenda that we shared with you all. One is we just did introductions. Check that off. We're going to talk a little bit about the existing trends. Kristen's going to go through some of the housing data and demographic data. Again, on your sheet that we gave you, there is on the housing data, like single-family home permits, multifamily housing permits, accessory apartment permits, you'll see the words need to verify. Because those I know, just from touring the town and talking with folks, are woefully underrepresented in the census. So that's why we have to work with your town staff as that real-time data we spoke about to update this. And once we have that, there'll be another footnote saying, instead of 1 U.S. Census 2010 and 2 U.S. Census 2020, it's going to say 3 actual data in the town real property tax, because that's what you're taxed off of.
Yes.
You know how many units you have. Census doesn't. So it's kind of weird when you say the census doesn't have that data. Censuses are done, and every 5 years you'll get postcards in the mail asking you to fill out information. It asks you for household size and income, and do you own, do you rent, all that data. That data is only as good as the data that's provided. So if your renters aren't filling them out and your homeowners aren't filling them out, only the seniors are doing it, you have skewed data.
Yeah. And that's the same with the county housing study. It was a voluntary survey, and we were getting hit on both ends with not accurate data.
And that's always the challenge.
Yes.
So what we're trying to do here is provide as accurate data as we can, putting it into an addendum. So again, you'll be able to make the decisions on your housing and infrastructure needs, and you'll be able to use that addendum towards those grant applications in the next few years. Then, if you so choose to do a full comp plan update, there'll be grants for that. And within this process, we will open up the town boards acting as the comprehensive plan advisory committee. It's your right and role as a town board. When you do your full comp plan like you did in 2010, you're most likely going to have a full advisory committee with residents and special interest groups. You'll have surveys. You'll have everything you do to comp plan. This is just the addendum. That'll be a full one, should you choose to do that at some point.
Absolutely.
Okay? So, Chris, do you want to go over some of the demographic
Yeah,
trends?
so there's a number of things, and again, some of these are gonna be from the census, so again, just be mindful of that data. But again, these are also, some of these data sets are things that you wouldn't normally have in the town, like who's living in the apartments, or what age group, things like that. So first thing is just sort of the overall number of households, and we look at from 2010 to 2023, and it looks like there's been an increase of about 13% in number of households. But what's really, I think, interesting and makes you start to question what's going on here is the number of households that are now just either a single male or a single female. Both the single male has grown by about 300%, and the single female households have grown to about 230%. So about 5,000 units related to that. And it's hard to imagine that those are just single females and single males that
Bless you.
lived here, that grew out of their parents' house and suddenly needed an apartment. And you kind of get the sense that there's an influx of people coming in of that type, of that demographic. And at the same time, what you're seeing is the household sizes are starting to decrease. So that's the number of people living in a household. And that's decreasing by about 8%, going from about 2.7 to 2.5. And then the family size is also shrinking at about 2.8%. So those are kind of the household sizes, the demographics are related to the households. And again, that really paints a picture that something different is happening here. And it has been happening for the past 10 or 15 years. Not speaking loud enough?
Just
So-
for the camera.
What's that?
Just for the camera.
Okay, so that's the general picture in terms of that. Household income and household expenses. So the overall household income has increased from 73,000 to about 92,000, but at the same time the cost of households have gone up as well. So not quite keeping up with the rate of increase in income. The overall housing inventory has grown, like we said, about 12.7%, and that's divided among a lot of different things. So there's about 6.3% in apartments that are 10 or more, another 50% that are 5 to 9, 60% that are 2 apartments, and then about 84% increase in the number of 3 to 4 apartments. Those are the big areas where you're seeing a lot of growth, at least through the census and the way they've broken this down. What's interesting is that you're seeing the number of single family attached is actually, or detached, so it's a single family that's not attached to something else, has actually decreased, not just in the percentage, but in the actual numbers, which would suggest that a lot of single families have now been split up and made into apartments. So again, you're losing a lot of the single family that, in a lot of cases, people look at that for stability in neighborhood, stability in, families and groups around those areas.
As I mentioned before, those numbers still have to be tightened up with your real property tax numbers.
Yes.
Right.
That's just the general numbers from the census. We believe there's actually probably about 500 units more of housing from apartments that weren't even reflected in there, not to mention what's on the books on hold.
Correct.
So it'll be tweaked based upon your real numbers, but that just gives you a general view that your single family is decreasing and multifamily in the last decade has shot up. What you see on the ground,
Yes.
but we can see just when
Well, yeah, we saw the construction of Old Hopewell Commons, River Bends, so on and so forth. We saw Nature Preserve. Those are a number of complexes that were built in the last 10 years.
So, and then I think one of the other things that you'll see is that there is a big change in the number of housing tenure is whether somebody rents or owns, right? So there's a huge increase, about 46% in the number of those that are renters now, and there's an actual decrease in the number that own their own housing. So those are the kind of the larger issues that not issues, but those are the larger sort of demographic points that we're seeing that point to some of the growth and the different changes in neighborhoods and the different changes across the community that are happening. So.
which is different than the Dutchess County study.
Exactly.
Right. And again, when we look back at the Dutchess County study, the Dutchess County study sort of takes us, again, it was a survey, and it looks at the number of units that the county says they are short in terms of how many rental units are needed, and then it just does a blanket assignment across the different municipalities within that, without looking at how much, what your infrastructure looks like, how many rental units you already have, what your demographics are. So it's not looking at any of the data anybody else would look at to find out whether that number that they're assigning to Wappinger is even appropriate.
But then the survey also says something to the effect that you may need a certain amount of housing, but it's over a period of time. It's not like you have to have it in the next 3 to 5 years. It's over a period of time. Because if I remember correctly, one of the surveys said it was a 10 to 20 year period that you had to have or try to meet that quota that the county had said. So again, taking a look at these numbers here, I see what you say here, but I'm not so sure with all the information we still have to collect that, number one, it's probably not 100% accurate, but number two is, again, it's over a period of time that we have to fulfill the needs that the county's looking at. So, and as the supervisor said, we know a couple of apartment complexes were never part of the actual equation. So it's actually a much higher rental than we're seeing here
Yeah,
today.
absolutely.
So again, going back, you have to really verify these numbers. I get it, you have to do that. You said you have to do that.
Yeah.
Correct.
This is a point in time. This is the best data you have available, so I understand what you're doing. But I think you're going to find these numbers are going to change quite a bit.
Well,
when you get
we
the actual-
anticipate they will, but we
Yes.
wanted to have you, when we came today to the first conversation with the town board, we wanted to have a snapshot, and we're gonna email it out to you, so you guys have it for your records and your files, and the whole board. And then when we finish it up, when we get all the new data, you'll have a second one, then you'll be able to compare to both the original snapshot with the data you have from the town's real property tax logs. From there, you can look at what the county's goal was. I mean, it's still a home rule state.
Sure.
So their goal was, just like the governor's goal, if you buy an MTA station, it's 3%. If you're not, it's 1% over 3 years. Their goals. We want to see where you are within that, but we want to make sure that you're fairly treated in the eyes of the housing world. In other words, you're not being the place that every developer is gonna go because you have the resources, but you don't always have all the resources.
Exactly, and that's what we're starting to see now, especially folks in the Cedar Hill portion of town. Many applicants have come forward and said, well, per the Dutchess County Housing Study, you're supposed to have X, Y, and Z, and again, as we've discussed here, those numbers are flawed, and as we will be talking about
In future.
in future meetings, the infrastructure we still don't even have. We have a
Correct.
finite amount of water, and again, we have a finite amount of people that are involved in a water district that have paid into that over a period of time. And it's the position of this board to make sure that those water resources go to those existing residents before the developer can come in and just decide
Correct.
to build up.
You know, Association Towns and NICOM are trying to get a CHIPS type of formula for water and sewer in the state budget, where every year, every municipality, based upon population, like CHIPS, will get money for water and sewer. They don't have that.
No.
So and you as a town, as you know, town law cannot take town revenues or resources and put it into a special district.
Correct.
So you have districts for water and districts for sewer. Each one of those systems has some issues with capacity and yield on the water side, capacity, transmission, treatment on the sewer side, and you just can't keep adding inputs without addressing the potential outputs. So we have to identify that, and that's not all just numbers, that's looking at the systems. So in this addendum, we're gonna be working, again, as I said a little while ago, with Larry and Mike on the wastewater side to identify some of the challenges, capacity, yield of the water, capacity, treatment on the sewer side, and look at the limitations you have in your contracts with Tri-State and Muni to identify what you really can do. And there's a difference in a planning level countywide, or as planners saying it's utopia, what we like you to do. Then there's the harsh reality of what I'm physically able to do. And you don't have nothing, I don't know that you have extra $10-20 million just sitting around to just keep putting into water, wastewater. It just isn't there right now. So we have to identify those, and you have to make those decisions as a board to balance the needs of the many. I don't want to sound like Spock from the 1980s, but the needs of the many are the needs of the few. But you have to look at the needs of the many based upon the development opportunities, what you have in infrastructure, the opportunities, and make those visions in that addendum so that you can set forth the next 2 years as you're going through a moratorium and addressing those, and then you look at the larger picture.
Absolutely. And the LaBerge Group and Ben have been very involved in that infrastructure and those conversations. As if you've been following our town board meetings, we've been very proactive in applying for grants and working on rebuilding a number of these plants. The LaBerge Group has been that consultant that we've retained to work on that. And again, we continue to see these unfunded mandates from the state, whether they're changing levels or so on and so forth, where again, the town now has to provide capital infrastructure improvements to sustain what we have. We can't be expected to offer additional capacity and tie in a number of other people when we can't even serve our residents that live here today.
You have a number of residents looking to tie in right now.
Exactly.
So that's kind of the demographic changes and trends we're working on day one. When we have the update, we'll make sure the whole board has that. We'll email it out to everybody prior to the meetings to you guys, and then have an opportunity to compare and contrast. Then you can come with questions. Again, it's our first day with you all doing this, so I'm glad to see everybody.
Just a couple other points on trends in general. So when we talk about all these trends, what we're not doing is saying any one of those trends is good or bad. So for every community, it's going to be different. So some communities may be saying, we want more single family housing, or we want more apartments for singles, because we have a factory or something that employs all of these people. We're trying to get them in here. Or you may be saying, well, we're trying to become a community that is a great place to raise a family, and then you're building apartments that don't coincide with that. You have 1 or 2 bedroom apartments that aren't allowing for families, and you're seeing a decrease. So every one of these trends is not necessarily good or bad. We have to look at it from what is your vision as a community and make sure that the trends are going in the right direction for
Absolutely.
you as a community, or what is the intervention that needs to happen to reverse it, if that's the case.
I think what Chris is saying is you have to put the trends into context with your community character. So those of you that are watching at home, if you're in Tarrytown or Sleepy Hollow or Croton, and you're right on the Metro North, you're going to want to see a lot of apartments right there for the people living in the city can hop on and go right in and be done. And so these single unit apartments you're seeing with the men and the male and females that have risen and grown at 200% and 300%. Well, that's great for Tarrytown, where they took the old GM site and put apartments there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what's happening over there. They're in 2,000 new units over there. But that's not may not be what your character is. So that context is very important. Numbers give you the context, your community character gives you that context, and you marry that together with what's available with your infrastructure. And infrastructure is also transportation, it's sidewalk, it's trails, it's park, infrastructure is broad,
Schools.
it's schools.
Schools, definitely schools.
Fire.
So that's all, it's all why planning is broad, and it's very simple to say, oh, come, but then you have to say, oh my God, you're all here. What do I do with you? Can I feed you? Can I service you? Can I transport you? Do we have the services for you? Can I educate you? And can I get you water and sewer?
And that's essentially where we're at today. You know, we're not a community with an empty IBM plant like East Fishkill, and they're able to fill that empty pre-developed site. One thing that we have taken strides to do is fill the empty malls, the previously developed sites, with innovative development. That's what we've taken that approach, and we've been very successful with that. But on the other hand, it's preserving the open space, not clear-cutting hundreds of acres of open space and wildlife.
Very good.
So it's a delicate balance we have to play here.
Yes, it is. It's a lot more challenging than people think. Now, I happen to be in an intermunicipal consulting firm, so I have engineers and we have planners, grant writers, community developers, government operations folks. My engineers think that, you know, they think one way: see a problem, fix a problem. And they don't understand the talking about it and balancing it. It's a problem. Fix it. What's the problem? From the planning side, it's really taking the data, taking that context, taking the character, and balancing and interweaving the community's values with the data sets and the growth patterns, and layering that with the infrastructure. It is a delicate dance.
Absolutely. Okay.
So what we also like to do during the initial kickoff meetings is talk about some of your assets and some of your liabilities from your perspective. You know, as if you're teaching the public and teaching us what you think are your greatest strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, or threats. We kind of bring into assets and liabilities. So in your mind, we'd like to hear from you all as to where do you think of what are the greatest strengths or assets in your land use, in your housing, and in your infrastructure. And then we'll hit the liabilities. I always like to start with good.
I think the town of Wappinger, if I can start off, the town of Wappinger has a very robust and diverse housing stock as we see it currently. Just to look at it as well, we have the village of Wappingers Falls located within our town, which we're working to make that a beautiful, walkable downtown community, a center of life and activity in this town. And I think that we're doing a successful job at that. We are the most affordable town in this county, and I believe everyone here will stand by that, especially with our most recent budget. So again, we are an affordable town to live in. We have a great diverse housing stock. We are working to make this an innovative town with destinations within it. And essentially that is a huge asset, you know, especially now that we are reinvesting in ourselves as much as we are, from our capital infrastructure to our roads, our parks, water and sewer infrastructure. We are very proactive when it comes to that. So a lot of other towns, like we've spoken about, that 10% housing ratio in some of our neighboring towns, they don't have the luxury that the town of Wappinger has. We have neighborhoods like Rockingham and Indian Village and Kendall Farms, and neighborhoods like Cedar Hill and Spring Terrace, and hamlets like Chelsea and Houstonville, and again a village that's a beautiful walkable downtown center where young people are looking to move to as well. So.
Councilman,
There's an influx of people moving here from the south.
when you say the South, you mean like New York
Lower
City or the
Westchester,
South?
Lower Westchester, the Bronx, Yonkers, because it's affordable. And you can't stop that. I can't tell somebody you can't move here. So this is also a commuting area. People commute to the city. They take Metro North because that's where the jobs are.
You saw in 2000, well, COVID was 5 years ago in March. In that time period, you saw a huge upswing in the Mid-Hudson Valley
Yes.
on housing starts. A conversion of houses to apartments, building of apartment complexes, multifamily, purchasing and housing, all the way up to Northern Columbia County. Because people were doing just that, leaving the city and going north. I asked that when you said the South. I'm from Long Island originally. So anything north of the Tappan Zee Bridge was upstate back then. Now living in upstate for 30 years, when you hear the South, I got to ask how far south is south.
I hear
I'm
you.
thinking people come from Georgia up here. So you're coming from the city up here. We had
The other part is, I used to commute. I worked in White Plains for numerous years. You can't go too much further north if you have to do a commute into Lower Westchester, to the medical centers, to the colleges, whatever.
Correct.
So this is a hub, and people usually do not want to go further than this because your commute turns into almost 2 hours. What used to be an hour into White Plains is now, I would say, I don't know anybody here that does the commute. It's bumper to bumper, and the traffic is awful. And it's only going to get worse. Because again, the infrastructure isn't there to take care of these people coming in here. How many times do we sit in Route 9 and sit in traffic?
I just watched it.
No, I know, but I experience it every day. And I also, let me finish.
It opened up and hit Wappinger. It was beautiful.
Let me finish. I have a baseball stadium
Yep.
that backs up on Route 9D traffic. What has the state done for that? What have they done to Route 9D? That's a state road. We need help,
Yes, you do.
but you can't stop people from wanting to come here. And we have to provide a service. And that's the difficult balance. If I said to people, I've lived here my entire life. My neighbors have come from the Bronx, from Yonkers, but they don't want anybody else moving in here. Hey, I've seen it. I've seen horse farms go. I've seen farms go. If you have the money and you own that property, there's laws that protect you, that what you can do with your property. So we have to be very careful. Am I wrong?
No, you were correct.
I mean, if you look at Saratoga right now, Saratoga isn't anything like it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago with Malta. You can't even buy a house there now. I'm just saying, it's very difficult.
Have you looked at Saratoga Springs over the last 25 years?
Yes, I have.
And 25 years ago, it was not a nice community.
No, I understand
And
that.
they really did a good job in the downtown
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Malta, so when the chip fab came.
Yes, Global
that-
Foundries.
That opened up the entire county, Saratoga County, but also lower Washington County,
Mm-hmm.
Warren County, all the way down to Albany County. And then what they just added a whole new chip
Right,
consortium at SUNY
Right.
Albany.
Right.
That's gonna.
but they could have also done that here too. They could have done it right at IBM. Because that's where, no, I understand, but I worked at both places, so I know. But we're here to take care of the people that live here. That's our jobs, that's why we get elected. We do what's best for them, and we need a lot of help, because we don't have water.
Correct.
I live 2 miles from the river, and I don't get water, but they pump water from there down to the city. I have people down there that can't get water, and they can't drink the water that comes out of their wells. So it's a problem.
Piggybacking on the positive comments that you.
It's a beautiful area. We have a beautiful river. It is gorgeous here. That's why people want to come here. We have 4 seasons. There's a lot to be offered here. We have good colleges. Are we lacking in some things? Of course we are. But we're growing and we're changing with the times.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And to piggyback off of one point there, just like Councilwoman Bettina, many folks now work remotely, especially after COVID. Most folks will remember when there was truly a rush hour in the town of Wappinger in the mornings and in the afternoons. Now it's consistent traffic, whether it's Myers Corners Road, Old Hopewell Road, Route 9, 9D. We are seeing folks that work from home. And that's a good thing. So now what's happening is, rather than folks leaving the town and commuting away, they're bopping around the town. They're going to Norma's for coffee and to work remotely there, or they're bring their children to daycare or to school. So they're running around the town more frequently, which is clogging up the roads and the infrastructure more often throughout the day, whereas typically it was only 2 times a day. Now it's throughout the day for the most part. So again, the infrastructure end of things needs to be addressed.
Transportation absolutely does.
Yes.
I'll ask Larry when I talk to him next about the history of the town working with the regional office of DOT on some of those issues.
Oh, we've tried. Believe me, we've reached out. And some things have changed and some things haven't.
So when I was in the county legislature, we had a great relationship. We were able to get that roundabout, $6 million grant for the roundabout out at the airport. And that was huge, whereas before you were waiting in a 15-minute traffic light at a 5-point intersection. Now it's a beautiful new roundabout that keeps traffic moving. We were able to work with the state on Route 9D to address the flooding issues. I called out the DOT within my first 3 months of office. We got the flooding issues fixed down in Chelsea, so they were able to widen the shoulders, improve that there. We are currently working with County DPW on a roundabout here at Sergeant Palmetier Way and Middle Bush Road to replace the dumb light. It's not a smart light, but to replace that light there. Add a traffic signal at Spook Hill Road and Myers Corners Road, and wide variety of other issues. So we are being proactive when it comes to engaging with DOT and DPW. Again, like we said, we are the smallest geographical town and yet second most densely populated. We have a lot of state and county infrastructure assets that need to continue to be upgraded. And we continue to have those conversations with them.
It's a good thing to talk with Dutchess County Transportation Council.
That's right. And I'm a
And-
voting member.
Yes,
of that.
we talk.
Right, but if there's talking with them and then there's getting your projects listed on the tip for the next 5 years. Working with the regional office, get them on the tip. You can also work with the New York State Regional Office to get congressional earmarks coming in to your roads that don't just come to you. If you notice, there are a number of communities in Rockland County and Orange County where the Congress folks, the Congress people, men and women, are sending them over to the DOT. And DOT is doing the work. So there's a state route outside of New Square that Congressman Lawler was able to get some money in the budget for. And Congressman Ryan was able to get money in Orange County for a DOT project. So I urge you to continue to be representing the town on the policy committee and on the planning committee, so that as those conversations are happening, your projects can get listed as well.
And I would encourage the public as well. We shared it on our town social media page. There is a survey that was launched by the Dutchess County Transportation Council. I would encourage everyone to go on there. There are two interactive links on there. Once you click the main link, one is a survey for what you think is needed safety-wise in the county and infrastructure-wise. Another one is an interactive map, which actually allows you to go on and pick that one intersection that you've been calling Councilman Casella about, or the supervisor, or Highway Superintendent Sheehan about for a long time, and you'd like to see some upgrades there. The county, we've worked with our OCIS team to create this interactive map. We've been encouraging a lot of folks to use it. Right now, the town of Poughkeepsie and the town of Wappinger have the highest individual resident interaction. And you can actually see, while you're on there, all of the other bullet points that were placed there by other residents and neighbors like yourselves. So I would encourage you to go on the town of Wappinger Facebook page. You'll see that. We'll also be sending that out in our monthly newsletter as well.
Fantastic. Councilman Casella.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. So I'm going to disagree with the board a little bit. So I think that infrastructure is one of the key things in the town of Wappinger. I think we've done a number of significant project upgrades. For example, our water system. So we have a number of new wells that we put on board. We're still working on getting some additional. We have some funding to go ahead and be able to do that. Again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that, again, at least service the residents we have here. That's the first focus, I think. As far as location, I think we're a great location. Even though we happen to be a pass-through, we are an excellent location. A lot of people want to move in our town, so I think that's a positive. Our financial stability of the town, I think, is another great asset that we have here. We just recently received some money for ARPA as an example, so we've done a number of significant improvements for the town. But in addition to that, the town board is also doing some significant projects in the town. As an example, the Chelsea Dock we're going to be upgrading for. Some of the lights, so we're going to put electronic lights out there at Slide House Park. Talked about a new stage, but there's a number of items we're out there. We just recently purchased some vehicles for the town. So that's all things that are positive for the town. Again, that's for our buildings and grounds team. Our parks are some of the best in the town. We recently just upgraded our parks over at Martz Field, put in brand new pickleball courts, put lights up there. Recreation is a big thing, updated some things over at soccer. So we have a lot of positives in this town, and we want to continue on that path. I think that's where we need to go. There are a number, and we are working with DOT, as the supervisor said. I was actually out there when they were doing the roundabout. We actually helped out a resident. They were going to take up a lot of his property, and we were able to actually fix it so that the fence was able to give him some privacy,
Gave him fence.
but also gave him some additional fence, and DOT was willing to work with us. But again, the roundabout was a big thing. And again, working with some of these, the county folks as well, trying to get money into the town for different projects we like to do, and we get a lot of grants.
Yes.
And we also appreciate the fact that you've got a number of grants for us. We have a number of sewer plants that have to be upgraded that you're currently working on. Midpoint being the big one, Wildwood being another one that we're currently working on.
Fleetwood.
They're working on grants for us, and that's significant for us. And those will help out the residents that are currently here. It doesn't expand anything, but we got to take a look at other projects we're going to have to expand. We know some of the things we're going to have to. People have been paying on their taxes for quite some time now, but they've been paying some fees, hoping at one point in time to be either hooked up to water or sewer. So those are the kind of things I think that we need to look at. We need to focus on. We're going to continue doing that. I think that'll all be part of the comprehensive plan as we come out. And I'm looking forward to working with our board and yourselves as well to, make those improvements, trying to make the town a better place to live. And again, it's wonderful now, but we want to continue to make improvements every single year, and that's what we're looking to do.
Thank you, Councilman. I agree 100%.
Joe, I'll even throw out to you.
Mr. Clerk.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
You're Mr. Clerk and former town board member.
Yeah,
I think you got
exactly.
a few ideas in there.
Yeah, well, I should go over the map though.
Oh, now it's showing up.
You don't know what you unleashed.
Yeah, you all better get comfortable.
3 minutes, right?
There's a reason why I invited Joe up here today.
Well, remind us we're a 3-minute limit.
But no, Mr. Paoloni offers an extensive background on this.
We're a town that's bordered on the east and the west by water. And, I've always had a vision. I lived in a number of different places. I lived for 3 years. I vacationed in the Hamptons since I was 5. So I had an idea of what places do right and do wrong. I have a cabin up in Lake Luzerne. I saw what Saratoga has done right.
Yeah.
So when I first moved back up here, my parents and I have lived here since 1967. My dad worked for IBM. So when I came back up here, my wife signed me up for the town board. I guess she was trying to kill me.
And she's the nicest person.
We need a community center for all ages, park somewhere, we had river, whatever. Connie Smith found the place, I said to Ruggiero, tell Paoloni I found him his park, and fortunately enough, it was on the river, it was Conway family. Me and Joey and Connie Smith, we bought the park for $2 million. And the goal there was to put a community center on the top for all ages, view of both rivers and things of that nature. Can you people hear me? Okay, other things, all these rivers can be used as kayak trails. Me and the young supervisor, when he was a county legislator, we kayaked through this whole thing. A good clearing there of the trees there could have a portage station up here at Robinson Lane, and then and disembark in either the Marsh Field or even further down at the Rockingham soccer field there as well. Another vision that I had for the town on the town board, and even subsequent to that, I was town board for 14 years, and just when I thought it was out, they pulled me back in. Was for this property right here, it borders, you can't really see it right here, but it's basically a central park that's just for like botanical gardens and gardens. Or just maybe a loop trail to go around. It's the Cranberry property that is just south of Whitmer Road, north of Myers Corners, west of All Angels, and east of Route 9. It's quite a bit of property there, and it'd be nice if that was preserved. And we could probably buy it for a limited amount of money, maybe a couple of million. We have loads of taxpayers' money that really people paid for that don't live here anymore. That's not fair to squirrel away money. I mean, bond rating is subject to the ability of you people to pay. That's what a bond rating is. It's not about how much money you keep in the bank. A lot of that money could easily buy this property and protect it from development. As far as that's assets, I don't think you want me to go. As far as we have a recycle center that's open twice a week, all year long. No other towns have that. At least not in this area. It's all year long. Poughkeepsie's open just in the summertime.
Fishkill's open
As
1
far as
day a year.
positive things we did, probably if I had to go back, we wouldn't have done it. But we're the ones, me and Ruggiero and Connie Smith, we connected all the water systems, the Hilltop, the Atlas aquifers up here, the Rockingham systems here. We connected them all so that we wouldn't have any more droughts. we knew that we were opening up a can of worms for development, and that would, attract all developers to start building more. And the good idea was to bring water to people that were running out of water. So, along with a lot of good, sometimes comes bad. As far as the bad, I'll let you guys talk about that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Paoloni, because again, as everyone knows, and anyone's watched the board meeting or met me, that I love this town. We have a tremendous asset in this town. And we have really taken significant efforts to reinvest in our infrastructure, as was outlined here today. We've taken great steps to work with local landlords and property owners to curate the types of businesses that we'd like to have, whether it's in the village center or along Route 9. There's so much happening in this town right now that it is truly an exciting time to be in the town of Wappinger. And we don't want that progress to be cast aside by, not being able to provide the goods and services to the people that live here, essentially, if we get to the point of overdevelopment. Again, our schools, we've spoken about that. We have so many tremendous assets, and people move here for a living. People choose to live here for a reason. We don't want to overburden them. We don't want you to have substandard goods and services and facilities for you and your family to go and enjoy. This is essentially for the town to say, we know why you moved here, and we're acknowledging that, and we'd like to improve upon that.
Are there any outstanding liabilities you guys want to share that wasn't part of the conversation, where you just were kind of going back and forth in some assets and liabilities?
I was trying to stay to the positive.
Okay.
The liabilities, again, we are the smallest geographical town in this county. We have a finite amount of open space. We see right now the tremendous traffic and congestion within this community. Any additional development, especially those miles away from any goods and services where people have to drive and go all over the place, is only going to contribute to that. We heard from the superintendent of schools, Dwight Bonk, at a former town board meeting, that if this trend of overdevelopment continues, the school district will have to look at building additions on both junior high schools. That is now a direct impact on the taxpayers for having to finance new construction. So again, and also then opens the door to developers saying, oh, well, you now have these two new big additions on your junior highs. You no longer have a capacity issue. We'd like to fill that capacity. We know how that works. Again, a finite amount of resources when it comes to water and sewer. We had, my first month taking office, a tremendous water main break on the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors property. No one's fault. It was below zero temperatures, and their service main going into the property broke and created a massive crater. And I believe it was something of 200,000 cubic feet of water was discharged from that pipe break, and our town's water storage tanks up on top of All Angels Hill Road were both of them down below 50%. Now, when our town engineer, Larry Poggi, at the beginning of last year, completed a study of our water availability, that same amount of availability that he said we had was, again, that same amount of water that was then discharged during that water main break. So how do I, as the town supervisor, say to someone, yeah, we're going to connect you to water and you can add hundreds of units here, but then we don't have that capacity to sustain what we have now. God forbid we have another water main break. Again, sewers, as Councilman Casella had mentioned, our sewage treatment plants are under the watchful eye of the DEC and the EPA. The town attorney, the town engineer, and I, and our water and sewer operator made a trip to DEC regional headquarters to speak with them and literally plead our cases and also provide our realistic strategic plans for accommodating the existing residents and providing realistic capital infrastructure improvements, which the DEC and the EPA welcome those ideas and those concepts. So again, right now, these are some of our deficits. Roads, as we've said, the town was built up significantly over time, especially, during the IBM booms that we saw here. And the infrastructure was not built up to accommodate that. when you go down to Long Island and towns down there, you have expressways running every which way, and you know, that's still a traffic nightmare, but they were at least trying to accommodate what they were building. We still have early 1700s turnpikes and roads dating back to English common law, which the town saw when we expanded water down through the Houstonville, Wheeler Hill, and Chelsea hamlets. We don't even have easements along some of these roadways. So just to put that in perspective, again, we don't have the necessary road infrastructure either to accommodate that kind of housing that we have today, the residents that we have today.
Well, some of the housing we also need is for seniors. A lot of the seniors don't want to leave this area. They want to stay near their families. They want to be near their grandchildren. But there's nothing to really help them. Their houses are too big, and there's no place for them to really move. So that is an area that has to be addressed.
Thank you. And you've, Supervisor, echoed your concerns on traffic, transportation, congestion already, so.
We live it. We all do.
So our infrastructure, I think, is the biggest part here we need to take a look
Yeah.
at. So we've talked about schools, fire, roads, et cetera. That'll be the biggest issue if you do any kind of expansion. Again, we're a finite amount of water that we have today for the wells that we have today. So again, increasing capacity. And a lot of this, there was a survey done a number of years ago, probably 10 years ago, where they had developments already figured out who was going to take the water. And a lot of the areas are already taking more than the capacity that they were originally set up to do. So what you've got is a finite amount of water that you can get out there. So to bring a lot of these in here, there's really no extra sources for that water. You know, sewer is another big thing. If you were to do something with Tri-Muni as an example, right now they have a lot of issues and concerns right now with the residents that are part of that hookup today. If you're to expand that, it's going to be very, very expensive, and who pays for that? So that's going to be a concern there too. It's going to be a lot of challenges, and as we talked about, we have a number of sewer plants for updates. My particular one in Midpoint only has 155 residents in it. They want to do an expansion on it. It was pretty significant. They were talking about it was a $10 million expansion. Hopefully it's not going to be that. They're working on it with your group here, so hopefully it's going to be something less. And we have a meeting set up in March to take the residents through. But you also have Wildwood, you have Fleetwood, you have a number of sewer plants out that are at capacity.
Correct.
And so in order to expand, again, you have to build a new plant. Who's going to be responsible for that? And if you only have a small group of people, like my development has, 155 people for a $10 million project, that's a lot of money for people to pay, and it becomes unaffordable. So again, I think infrastructure is really the big thing here we're looking at. Again, if you start bringing a lot more people, like the supervisor said, you know, Dr. Bong said, you know, we're at capacity now. If you try to bring in more people, what do you do?
Yeah,
What do you do with the schools? Who pays for it? We do all as taxpayers.
Exactly.
So again, those are things I think is the big thing.
We're talking about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I was going to say, to piggyback off your point, Councilman, Tri-Municipal, just by way of background to the residents, the town of Wappinger, majority of our sewage goes to the Tri-Municipal Sewage Treatment Plant in the town of Poughkeepsie. Rewind back to the 1980s, the town of Wappinger was supposed to be a voting member, a full member of the Tri-Municipal Sewer Commission, and due to politics at that time, was not. And so the Tri-Municipal Sewer Commission is essentially a bi-municipal commission between the village of Wappingers Falls and the town of Poughkeepsie. Right now, we see the town of Poughkeepsie looking for additional capacity. We do not need additional capacity here in the town of Wappinger. We're quite fine with what we're doing, and actually we're thinking outside the box with how to stop I&I, and that was the meeting that the councilman was referring to that we're going to be meeting with residents on. But what we're seeing is the impact by neighboring municipalities that essentially control the interest of Tri-Municipal. Since we have no voting say, we have 51% of their capacity, and yet when I go to the meeting, I can't say yay or nay. I can only make the town's case to the commission and to the EPA, which agrees with me and the town of Wappinger, that we do not need more capacity, quite frankly. And what we were being faced at the beginning of me taking office was a $54 million project from Tri-Municipal, which we would have to pay 51% of when we don't have a problem. We don't need additional capacity. We're trying to deal with the I&I issues. Other towns, like the town of Poughkeepsie, are looking to add thousands of new units. They need the capacity. My argument was, If the town of Poughkeepsie wishes to have more capacity, they should pay their fair share of it. The town of Wappinger, we need to sustain what we have. So on top of what we're dealing with our own plants and with our own infrastructure, we're dealing with additional issues, and that's with the Tri-Municipal Sewer Commission, who will not allow a single-family residence here on Middlebush Road to tie in, who's been paying into the sewer and so on and so forth, won't allow them to tie in. But again, and neighboring municipalities considering the Buckingham project or considering thousands of units elsewhere. And here in the town of Wappinger, our vacant land is not assessed at the same benefit unit as a single-family home. So just additional background, I'm just trying to give everyone as much background and information as possible. Is a single-family home in the town of Wappinger in the water or sewer district is assessed at 100 benefit units per thousand. Okay. Vacant land is assessed at 80 benefit units per thousand. So vacant land is not even paying its fair share to a single-family home, and yet is looking to come in and say, well, I've been paying into your district, I'd like to build 100 units here, when essentially they haven't even paid for one over the course of their time in the district. So we're trying to be fair. That's the basis of a lot of this. We're trying to be fair to the residents, trying to look out for the people.
Can you just explain for the crowd what I&I is so that everybody understands exactly what that means? It's not complicated, but
No.
we use those terms and it would just be helpful for everyone to know what it is.
That's a good point. So inflow and infiltration is I&I. So essentially rainwater is getting into sewer systems, and the plant has to treat rainwater. So it's not wastewater, it's not raw sewage. It's essentially water that should be going into the storm drains and things like that. Water that should not be treated is going in and affecting surge tanks, which is the initial holding tanks there, which over the 50-year time frame of the town of Wappinger being connected to Tri-Municipal has only had an issue 4 times, and that's during extreme weather events like Hurricane Irene, so on and so forth. So I&I again is someone's sub pump that might be connected to sewer, where it shouldn't be, things like that. So what we're trying to do is be manhole. Yep, we're trying to be innovative with our approach, not penalize anyone, but say, look, these are our I&I issues. We will take care of it. We will connect you to the storm drain. We'll divert you, because that would ultimately then free up the capacity that we need for the people of the town.
I'm just gonna add one thing. So, essentially what happens is that when the Tri-Muni sewer plant is not designed to treat stormwater, it's only designed to treat highly potent sewage. And when water dilutes the sewage, the plant can't treat it. And so what happens is that, there's no overflow at the plant, but what comes out of the plant is not compliant because the actual chemical processes that are supposed to go on are not able to work because of this water, this dilution.
Yes.
And it's such a significant issue that it has handicapped the ability of this plant to work. And if you look at how much sewage the plant is capable of treating overall, over a 30-day period, it has a number. And let's say that number is, 3.5 million gallons per day. In a very extreme rain event, it might get 7 million gallons a day. So those are I just want everyone to know exactly what we're talking about when we talk about I&I, because it's a complicated issue to fix. It's not a complicated issue to describe. But to chase down where this water is coming into the system is difficult. And you're going to see the town board over the next month or so reach out to the residents in areas where we think there are lots of connections from sump pumps into the sewer, as opposed to sump pumps going outside into the storm drains. And there's a very logical cycle that happens, which is if I have water coming into my basement, I'm not just going to pump it back outside my house where it's just going to come back in. People have pumped it into the sewer system inappropriately.
Yep.
But that is our I&I issue. And again, it's important for everyone to really just kind of know it's not complicated in concept as to what it is. It's complex as figuring out how to fix it, but it's important for you to know why it's so important for the town board and how it affects the planning as we move forward.
And that's why EPA, DEC is working with the town board.
Right.
That's why you're looking to shift the approach to a $10 million brand new wastewater treatment plant for 150 people to addressing the I&I and doing repairs. That's part of your March meetings with the public in that district.
Excuse
It's part of the cooperative approach that DEC is taking with your community. And it's a leadership role that you're now doing that wasn't here before.
That has to be done.
It does. And from the engineering side, you're right, Michael. There's a biological and a chemical way of treating wastewater in a system. I had to learn a lot about it as a planner. It's actually quite fascinating. I won't go into it all today, but
I don't think so.
Read Best the Biological Digest. There's all kinds of science, as the engineers would say, that planners don't really need to know about. Planners have to be able to talk to people. Engineers need the science.
Exactly. They fix things.
They fix things.
There you go.
We joke around the office that if you put a planner and an engineer in a box, who gets out? Well, the engineer sees a problem, designs a solution, he's gone.
Yeah.
The planner can never get out of the box because there's no one to ask their opinion of. That's the engineers saying, making fun of us. So they're the science guys. They fix that. We work with you guys on identifying these solutions as a community. Together is how we approach Midpoint. The public, the community, the growth, DEC, EPA. We work on it together, and that's what your March meeting's for.
Absolutely.
And one of the things for Midpoint specifically, if you take a look at the pumps, so if they have sump pumps, it doesn't take a lot of sump pumps to increase that level such that it no longer becomes standard, it's within the standard DEC requirements. As an example, we're running about 66,000 decimals, and we need to be able to bring that down. We've been in the 130 range, 130K, so you're almost doubling it. But again, that could be, some pumps could be a lot of other things. And that's what we're gonna be doing, like you said, in March, we're gonna go through the survey, ask the residents, et cetera, because it could be a simple fix. It could be, instead of being a $10 million project, maybe it's $1 million. Still very expensive, but it's still a lot less expensive. Again, so
It's even roof drains. I know, and I use my house as an example. I've had some flooding issues in the basement. We don't have sump pumps in those homes. And the drains that a lot of people have are tying into the stormwater. When I had to go ahead and fix my own drainage problem, I had to put a field out, a perforated pipe 60 feet out, and within that you go angle down, you put your rocks, put your drain, so it goes into the actual groundwater, not back into my house, or you can't put it into the storm sewer. Not storm, so can't put it into the sewer system. People were tying into the actual sewer system illegally in the town that I live in, and adding rainwater right into the wastewater treatment plant. Hence the problem that Michael was just mentioning.
Right.
Now you couple that with 85,000 people, it's a lot of more problems.
It's a problem. Yeah.
So that's just, it gets exasperated. So it's sump pumps, it's rainwater, it's holes in your manhole covers, it's a wide variety of issues you can identify. But luckily DEC is allowing you to do that and working with you. So I know we're already at the 8 o'clock time. We can either continue on with some preliminary visions of the future or hold that off to the next meeting once we have more updated data for you guys.
I think it would be beneficial. You did bring the zoning map as well. Why don't we touch on that?
All right, Chris?
Sure. So on the zoning map, where you can see a lot of those highlighted areas are really where it's zoned for residential multifamily. But I think what's important to know is that's not really telling the full picture of where the high density.
He needs the microphone.
It's just for recording, it doesn't amplify.
Oh,
Yeah, but you can't even hear him.
Oh,
He's got copies of the maps here.
excellent.
He's talking. You can't. It's not gonna record good.
Where is the recording going to be?
It's gonna be on the town municipal channel. It's going to be on the town website and YouTube.
Good,
Thank
so I can get more notes from there. Push my handwriting.
Yes,
Absolutely.
thank
You
you.
were saying?
Yeah, so the other thing with that, there are a lot of areas that are zoned more residential, but the zoning allows for this sort of strange clustering that promotes and allows for high density, I think even multifamily within those. So well beyond what you're seeing in the multifamily areas, it could happen anywhere, which makes it really, really difficult to create stability in those residential districts if you have a cluster development coming in. So I think that was kind of the main emphasis of that, and we'll update this map with all those other areas and then try to overlay that with some of the sewer and water infrastructure so you get a better picture of where some of those capacity issues are as well.
Supervisor, I know you were sharing some of the maps. You hear what Chris just said about We're gonna be overlaying, the water districts, the sewer district capacity issues, the infrastructure challenge you have. We'll be overlaying that with some of the transportation and congestion locations you have.
Yes.
We'll look at what the county has on their mapping, and then tie that back to where you have current multifamily, where the cluster development's allowed, coupled with those problem areas, and that's zeroing in on some real liabilities and challenges overcome.
So what the board is seeing here, as well as the public, you'll see the yellow highlighted multifamily sites in the town of Wappinger. The village of Wappingers Falls, of course, has its own zoning map, but its data is included in our reports. So what you're seeing here is basically everything that is yellow is already built up as residential multifamily in the town of Wappinger, and zoned for that. There is one property that has remained vacant that is zoned residential multifamily, and that is along Imperial Boulevard. Again, that is something that the town has to decide what we would like to do. But you'll also note too that there's a number of projects, like in the Cedar Hill area, that are not zoned residential multifamily, and yet have multifamily projects in front of them. There are two sections of code that currently exist in the town code that essentially allow applicants to bypass the town zoning. And our planning consultant confirmed that earlier, that essentially they can come in without a rezone, with a special use permit, and plot multifamily and single-family zoned areas. And that's the concern, is this loophole. That is what is going to be addressed during this process, or those sections of code. But I just wanted to make that known to everyone here, that you might say, hey, I heard that there's going to be multifamily behind me on Spook Hill Road, which is an application that was going to come in. But again, they would use that loophole there to bypass, which is again what we're looking to change from our town code during this
Which
moratorium.
is very counter to good zoning. Obviously, zoning, what you want to do is create that predictability. So when somebody makes an investment, they understand that they're buying a single-family home. That across the street from them is single-family zone. Next door on either side is single-family home zone. But now with that loophole, anything around that area could become both single-family as well as multifamily. So that really creates unpredictability and instability in your overall housing market.
And changes the community character from which you have built, bought, and grown.
Absolutely.
Bought, built, and grown.
So I think, clearly if your multifamily was just within those zones, we wouldn't probably be sitting here tonight. And that was
That's
kind of the point
correct.
of that.
And thank you for that.
It's key really to go back to that infrastructure discussion, not just water, sewer, but road, transportation, schools, parks.
Yes.
So global community infrastructure as your municipality is more than the hard and science water and sewer. It's all the things that make the community run. Those parks that you had mentioned, the land you mentioned over there for potential futures, botanical gardens, the community center, everything happening that makes this a place you want to be. That's being overtaxed, not big T taxed, as in financial tax, little t tax, as in it's being overused.
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, that's kind of where we're gonna be heading and looking over the next 2 months, is going back to that data, going back to your character, looking back at the development patterns, overlaying those issues to make that picture of what it could look like for you, and address those in the zoning code.
Absolutely. Do any members of the board
Thank
have
you.
any additional questions? I would like to, if no one objects, since we do have impressive group of residents here, that you open it up for any questions, obviously contained to this topic and what we've talked about here tonight. Yes, sir.
So is the plan you're amending, is that the 2010 plan?
Yes. So to repeat your question, and we will circulate the microphone around, the plan that you are talking about is the 2010 comprehensive plan. That is what we are talking about making an addendum to make this fix during the moratorium, correct?
And is there any way that a resident can tell of the 2010 plan, how much of that stuff has been done versus still needs to be done?
There's a substantial amount that was planned for and called out in the comp plan that was completed by the town of Wappinger. But there were a number of things, such as a bypass collector road parallel to Route 9 that was called out for, that cannot be built now due to Riverbend being built in the center. There was plans to build a bypass road through Houstonville, that I don't think is going to happen. But is there anything particular that you were looking
No,
at?
just like almost like a charter or
checklist?
checklist or something to say, here's the, 50 things that were in the plan and 20 of those are done or whatever.
A number of the parks and recreation improvements have definitely been made through the
Is that something you
comprehensive
can
plan. And then things such as bringing water to Chelsea. Yeah, that was done through partnering with New York City
Okay.
DEP
Thank you.
to run water to the Wheeler Hill, Houstonville, and Chelsea hamlets. So of course, taking care of those folks whose wells and septics were right on top of each other in the Chelsea hamlet, providing them water, that was a goal that was also achieved. So it depends on which aspect of it. Again, a lot has happened since 2010, and the vision of the town has shifted a little bit. The idea is to stick with that initial character and that initial plan that Mr. Paoloni led when he was co-chairman of the comp plan committee. But then, of course, bring things up to date and catch some things that might not have been caught.
And the plan is available on the town website through my portal, through the historical records. If you need to know how to access it, just give me a call and I'll walk through it.
So actually, we have just begun creating a worksheet for you as a town board, which will be at the next meeting, which is everything that the last comp plan said you did. Was this completed? Perfect. Has this not been completed?
Oh, good.
Is this still your goal for the next one?
So
If
you'll
not,
see
what's
that.
the next vision?
That would be great.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
that's actually the next one. I thought we had the worksheet with us, but apparently it's actually the next meeting we have.
Okay.
So it's been created already. That'll be our next worksheet.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to ask a comment? Yes, Mr. Gorman.
First off, thank you for having this. I'm a lifelong resident of the town. I've been here for over 30 plus years. Scraped my knees on Cayuga Drive, and now I'm watching my kids do the same up on Cedar Hill. And I think our greatest asset is pretty prevalent and shown in this room is that we have people that love living here because of why they chose to live here. And it's a small town. It's neighbors that care about each other. It's people who have been living here for generations. I married a girl who's now, her family grew up here. We're in our third generation in the same neighborhood. I want my kids to experience that. I remember when New Hamburg train station was a dirt patch. And I think our town is at a crossroads now where we want to keep that small town feel, but we need to take care of the people who were here, not the people who want to come here. And I'm not trying to be mean or standoffish or isolationist. I'm just trying to be
That's why we're here.
a resident that's concerned about we're at a very important time in our town's history, and this addendum and this possibility of a new comprehensive plan is going to not just affect us, my kids, your kids. It's going to affect our kids' kids and our kids' kids' kids. So we need to really take in, and our greatest asset, there are people in this room and the 30,000 other people outside. So I thank you guys for doing this, and I'm very interested to watch the future of this.
Thank you, Mr. Gorman. We appreciate you and your family and how engaged you are and everything that you do for the community. And again, to your point as well, looking at this with a fine-tooth comb and looking at everything methodically during a moratorium, not rushing into anything, is important to ensure that we don't have any loopholes in the future and projects that might apply for a special use permit. We want to make sure that that is not going to happen, that you buy a piece of land, you move to a town, you know what you're going to have here in your backyard, in your town.
Hi.
Hello, Ms.
Hi.
Petrillo.
I just wanted to thank our supervisor for having this meeting and having us be here to understand what is happening. And this is my 50th year in Wappingers, and I've loved this town as well. And my question is, will there be a committee set up to work on the comprehensive plan, and will that be open to residents as well as consultants and the town board?
So right now, we are doing the addendum to the comprehensive plan. which, given the sensitivity of the moratorium and the code changes, this is going to be an addendum made to the existing 2010 comprehensive plan. As we have alluded to here tonight, we will be looking upon town board approval to do a new comprehensive plan. As, again, you're supposed to look at comprehensive plans every 5 years, and then update them and make a new one every 10 years. We're a little beyond that mark. And so when there would be a full comprehensive plan update, there would then be a citizens advisory committee, members of the board, and we would go from there. So to move this forward, we are doing these. This is essentially a Band-Aid to get us through the moratorium and make these code changes, and to keep this comprehensive plan holding on for just a little longer. And then we will be very proactive when it comes to applying for grants to then fund the studies and the planning and the aspect of creating a new comprehensive plan, which is needed in this town. And then at that point, we would have a citizens advisory committee. But until then, we will continue to have these roundtable discussions, these workshops. I apologize for how clunky this is in this room. There is a very important planning board meeting going on with a number of applicants, so we did not want to impede that activity going on tonight. So I'm usually a little more polished and we usually function a little better. But we would encourage everyone to continue to come to these workshop meetings and engage with us just like this. I think that this is a great setting and a great way to continue to engage with the residents and reach out to your council people. I mean, that's what I would encourage everyone to do, is continue to reach out to your council people. You know that I have an open door policy. If I'm not in a meeting, you can come right on in. So this is going to be a community engagement process.
I'm quite impressed, Supervisor. I thought it was gonna be 5 of us. Thank you for coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And we hope to see you at the next roundtable. And at that roundtable, we will be working with the board to identify, going through all the goals, the old comp plan, just to see where we are, what was accomplished, what's not accomplished, are these goals still important to you and the vision as they relate to that moratorium and those critical issues that we spoke about today. Housing, infrastructure, transportation, and character, community character, so we can update the Band-Aid approach to the current comp plan. And if the town does decide to go forward, the grants they'll be applying for in July for the following year for much larger, not to make a play on words, but a comprehensive master plan. They're fuller, bigger, more robust.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is there time to do one more?
Of course. Stash.
Hi, thank you very much. I also appreciate the supervisor for making this public and available. I have a question about, because this is an addendum, is there, as the town is hearing from the consultants, is there going to be an opportunity when there's potentially a choice to be made in the addendum period that would then limit a future choice, or take a future choice off the table, or make a future choice less viable? Will we be able to have that kind of conversation so that we know that even if we're making a short-term decision, that it doesn't preclude what might be a much longer-term, better decision for the community?
So that would go through the same process as we just explained here. There would be a comprehensive plan update. There'd be a committee. There would be roundtable discussions just like this. So essentially, if you wanted to change, in my opinion, something that's good in here and change it back, would have to go through the entire process that we just outlined here tonight. And prior to any adoption of the addendum of any local laws, there would be public hearings. Required public hearings that allow the public to speak on it as well. So let's say, years from now, they decide what we discussed here is not relevant. There's an opportunity for the public to then say, this is still relevant, we still care about this, we want to preserve this, and you still have that opportunity. And it takes an engaged constituency and engaged public to do that. And that's, again, why we're trying to have these roundtable-like discussions. So essentially, yes, anything can be undone. And we've seen that with projects in this town, unfortunately.
I think another thing that's important to know is that, or understand, is the comprehensive plan is really setting forth the community vision, talking about what it is as a community you want. It's not setting zoning law. It's providing that basis to address zoning law, but it's not setting. So there's all these other things that happen afterwards. really becomes sort of that blueprint or that basis to make those kind of decisions later on in a different forum. So it's not, you're not voting on everything at that point, really, again, more of a generalized planning document that allows you to understand what the community's vision is, so you can make those other decisions later on.
Yes.
Sorry,
This will support the code changes that are made.
I
You
think
can't have
that-
something that's a contrast.
I think thank you. That makes total sense. The thing that I realized in listening to your comment, I wasn't clear. I don't know some of the things in the plan that are consequential. Like, I feel like there's a education for the public too, so that we know what kinds of things would be potentially consequential so that we can participate. You know?
And that's why we really tried to provide as much information as possible here tonight, right down to I&I, which was a great point by council, and provide that context, you know. This is my day to day. I'm running 24/7, and our council members and our town clerk, they know the terminology, they know the lingo. So again, providing this context of what's in the comp plan, what we're looking to do, statistics, like again, we are the smallest geographical town in this county and second most densely populated. So offering that insight to you so you could be a more well-informed neighbor and come to these meetings and have more insight is all the more valuable.
This is your town. Your input is required. So reach out to your council person. Send us an email. Anything. Picture. But I'm serious. It's your town.
11 o'clock at night.
No, you can send anytime you want. Send it. That's the nice thing about systems. Thank you for coming.
Any other comments? Seeing none, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to my colleagues. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a
Motion.
motion.
Do you guys have
Moved by
business
Councilman
cards?
Casella, second by Councilwoman Bettina. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
There you go.